Welcome back to another log. Today I want to discuss some of the research efforts of the nonverbal group and really define what kind of research we're going to be doing or already currently doing or done in the past. The way I like to describe it is I have one foot in academic research and another foot in coaching. So that's what we do. And one of the big problems or things that I've been quite vocal about is there's this thing that happens where a group of academics publish a study. The study gets published, and it has some sort. It's catchy, or it plays on a current theme that's in the media, or so on and so forth. Then that university's sort of a PR department is like, oh, this is really good. They release a press release. That press release gets distributed all around the internet. And now a ton of articles are talking about like how if you just smile more than 15 seconds a day, you're going to decrease your depression by 93% or something it's just outlandish, right? And there's this incentive chain where, the academics are operationally defining their research the way that they want, given the constraints of budget and given, the variables that they can look at and so on and so forth. The university is incentivized to boost the university's image, so they want to write a press release that's going to be most intriguing. The writers and the news people and, that whole industry is they want to make stuff interesting and compelling and get clicks. And what happens is, the study, if you read this actual study, you're like, all right, like this is pretty interesting, but like this is not conclusive whatsoever. But it starts to become this just basic study, and then it turns into some universal truth that's spread all across the internet. And in the social sciences, it's hard because I kind of feel like there was a period in psychological research where there's nothing wrong with the actual studies. It's the way the studies are misrepresented by other people. And when it comes to communication, like a lot of what we preach is that there is no human behavior is infinitely complex, right? Like there's so many different facets to why a person is the way that they are. And you're not going to do some study that's going to unlock the secrets of human behavior. Of course there are themes. Of course there are things like, classic social psychology research that's really good. But people are looking for things like, if somebody smiles 3 or 4 times in a row, that means they like you. Or people are always looking for these X means Y kind of dynamics. And I fought very actively against that. And I'm trying to show people that human beings are so much more complex, that people can't be deduced via one study. And what we do at the nonverbal group isn't really research. It's something that someone else, Erica Rosenberg, sort of helped me see this. It's something called empirically based exploration. And essentially what that means is that we use the same level of rigor or the same level of rigor or detail or focus for how we record, set up, label, and process data. But we're really not working with any sort of like hypothesis. We're not trying to prove. That's why I love grounding theory so much. It's a research modality where you just record everything and tag it and then figure out what's going on. And that's kind of, I could have said that better, but basically we're in exploration phase, and I feel like we're always going to be in exploration phase. So when it comes to hardcore research, I'm more interested in the effectiveness of our programs and how it impacts people's levels of anxiety or sociability or job status or whatever it is over the course of 3, 6, 9 months, and then 1 to 5, 1 to 10, X amount of years. So I'm more interested in like really measuring the efficacy of what we teach, the skill sets we teach, how we teach them, so on and so forth, and less interested in doing a study and providing some deep insights into human behavior. So it's the same thing we did with Beyond Tells, the largest study ever conducted on poker players, where I did all this analysis and we didn't find like X means Y. We found that there's an empirical way or a systematic way of approaching how you can extract information from behavior. And we're trying to do that in every domain. And one of the things that I find when we do this, and there's a lot of scraps, right? So we have a lot. We will. I mean, we already do, but we'll have a lot more coded data sets. And kind of what I want to do is I want to take that data set and I want to allow academic institutions to use it and however they want, right? So like we'll partner with studies with other people that want to look at those sort of themes, but we're really more concerned, like I spoke about in a previous thing, with perception research, in the sense of like we're more interested in how people perceive a subset of behaviors as opposed to what they actually mean. So the label is really empirically based exploration. I had a really hard time because I wanted to say like we don't do research, so it's kind of like research and then empirically based exploration. And I'm going into more details there, and I've just spent a good amount of time. This 93% of communication is nonverbal type of thing. I'm going to make a video about this longer, but I went down a rabbit hole figuring out like where that came from. It's obviously not accurate. 93% of communication is not nonverbal. I saw how misrepresented the initial researcher who did those studies was, and it's kind of alarming. And I guess part of me is just like I don't want our stuff to be misrepresented, so I don't want it to come across as like these universal truths, because I don't really believe that there are that many incredible maxims in behavior. Like the maxim is you need to understand context in order to figure out what's the most efficient path towards interacting with someone. Yes, there's themes. Yes, there's things that work more than others, but really you need context. And we live in a society that really just doesn't, I don't know, I feel like people don't like context anymore. They're not really willing to do the work. They're not really willing to look at the studies or understand the deeper meaning of something. They're more interested in being able to quote, a study found that X, Y, and Z to make themselves look good or to make themselves more interesting. And I'm just like really want to make sure, I'm making this video sort of earlier on, that like the people that work for us and the people that we're not trying to do that. I believe that's a silly pursuit. We're trying to build tools and methodologies for teaching people how to more effectively communicate and understand the world around them and live powerfully in that world, and so on and so forth. And one of the ways of doing that is cataloging human behavior. But it's not saying, oh my God, like these subset of things are going to lead to X, Y, and Z, because I feel like there's a problem. And I don't know, like there are certain things, like for example, like I can predict probably with a really high accuracy just based off of facial animation likability. Like that's like a pretty, no, in the United States probably, and some other countries, but mainly the United States, where it's like people with low level of facial activity are going to have less likability. I just know that because of the way they process and listen to information, so on and so forth. Is that a universal theme? No. Are there going to be people out there that are, have lower levels of facial activity, but then higher jumps in it, so that makes it perceived as, it's a little complicated, but like these are the kind of like deeper themes and things that I'm thinking about. And yeah, it's cool to be able, listen, I was, one of the coolest things about owning your own company and not answering to investors or not answering to anybody else but I guess your customers, is that you get to do things in a way that you may have always wanted to do them. So like when I was a graduate student, like I thought some of the research workflows were absolutely ridiculously stupid. Just like, why are we doing it this way? Like there's so many more efficient ways. And it was kind of like, well, this is the way it's been done. And I'm like, well, there's a better way to do it. We'll just do it the way it's been done. And it would just, or sometimes like I'd want to do research studies, and in order to do the study, you have to get grant approval, and there's all these these loopholes to jump through in order to like explore something. And I'm just really just been lately grateful and proud and fortunate that probably a 21-year-old version of me would be like, okay, cool. Like you're just, you're studying things in the way that you think they should be studied. Now, this doesn't mean that I'm applying the same level of scientific rigor to things or anything like that. So I just want to be clear about what our research actually looks like. And I know this is this is going to be, I'm making this video now. It's going to come clear to you when I start releasing more content. Like we're doing this thing called the social battery where I'm, breaking down behaviors and having long discussions. And it's kind of like, I want to be I don't even know. Like it's like you have really solid research with really good methodologies and really good standards and really good and powerful ethical containers to make sure like what you're doing is not like hurting people or making anybody miserable or so on and so forth. Like there's all these things to consider, but at the end of the day, you still want it to be like effective. So that's kind of what I've been. As you can see, this is like, again, this is my log. Like I'm talking to myself in a certain regard, but you're listening to the journey. But all right, here's my accountability thing to you. Like I want it to be very clear. I'm gonna be putting up a research page over the next 2 months, and it's gonna grow and evolve. But like this empirically based exploration is what I want this company to really do. I think that there's not enough of that. I think that there's a lot of value that comes from just getting your hands dirty and diving into data sets and seeing what's there. And this hypothesis-driven research of like, we need to prove X, Y, and Z. I think there's so much latent bias and there's just so many problems with that approach. And I'm happy to, do it my way or do it the way that I want to do it. And hopefully I'll have other people that will shift that perspective and change how I do things. It's already happening. But yeah, it's another little ramble. What else do I want to talk about? Oh, I'm going to Cabo this weekend or this week to speak at my friend Nick's conference. Never been to Mexico before. Been all around the world. Never been to Mexico. Can't believe it. So excited about that. Going to do a lot of hard runs on the beach. Up training for this obstacle course race thing. But yeah, that's about it. And yeah, I don't know what else to say. I mean, I do these. I really believe that in some of my content, especially the ones that are like scripted and outlined or whatever, like a lot of people get this concept that like, it's not that I'm cold and calculated, but that I'm like so framework based and so boom, boom, boom. And the reality is like a lot of this stuff is just like exploration and constantly reinventing the wheel and constantly changing directions on what you want to do and how you want to approach situations. I mean, I could look at this video and 4 years from now, I'd be like, oh my God, you were so wrong. You should have taken this approach, or you should have done something else, or you should have partnered or whatever. And I think specifically in research and in research and any sort of social science or hard science, like there needs to be humility. There needs to be the willingness to be wrong. There needs to be the ability to say, oh my God, I was advocating strongly about something that was actually wrong. And I feel like so many people are unwilling to do that. Even myself, like I really don't like to be wrong sometimes. So these videos and a lot of that is an indication of when I'll be wrong. So I think it's special and important to have that sort of public outlet. Anyways, that's about it. If any of you are in Mexico or in Cabo, I'll see you there.